Welcome back to our channel. Have you ever wondered why learning English feels so difficult even after months or years of study? The truth is that most people are not struggling because they are bad at English. They are struggling because they are using the wrong approach and expecting results too quickly. In today's video, we will uncover the real truth about learning English, the mistakes that keep learners stuck, and the best approach to become fluent with confidence. So stay with me until the end, because this video might completely change the way you learn English forever. Lesson 1. The real reason learning English feels so hard. If you are learning English right now, there's a good chance that at some point you have asked yourself, why is this so difficult? Maybe you have studied English for months or even years. Maybe you have watched videos, learned grammar rules, memorized vocabulary lists, and practiced exercises. Yet when it is time to speak, you still feel nervous. You still forget words. You still make mistakes. You still feel like you are not making enough progress. If this sounds familiar, I want you to know something important. You are not alone. Millions of English learners around the world feel exactly the same way. The truth is that learning English is difficult, but it is probably not difficult for the reasons you think. Most learners believe English feels hard because they are not smart enough. They think they have a bad memory. They think they are too old. They think they lack talent. But in most cases, these are not the real problems. The real reason English feels difficult is because most people have unrealistic expectations. Many learners secretly believe that fluency should happen quickly. They see someone speaking English confidently online and think, I want to sound like that in 3 months. They watch videos with titles like, Become Fluent Fast, Speak English in 30 Days, Master English Quickly. As a result, they begin their journey with unrealistic expectations. Then reality arrives. They discover that learning a language takes time. They discover that mistakes are unavoidable. They discover that progress is often slower than they expected. And because their expectations were unrealistic, they become frustrated. Imagine planting a tree. Would you expect it to become huge after 1 week? Of course not. You understand that growth takes time. You water the tree. You take care of it. You remain patient. Language learning works exactly the same way. English fluency grows gradually, word by word, sentence by sentence, conversation by conversation. The problem is that many learners focus too much on the destination and not enough on the journey. They constantly ask, when will I become fluent? When will I stop making mistakes? When will speaking become easy? Instead of focusing on those questions, ask yourself, am I improving? Am I practicing? Am I learning something new today? Because improvement is what eventually creates fluency. Another reason English feels difficult is because learners often compare themselves to people who are much further ahead. Imagine a beginner learning to play the piano. Now imagine that beginner comparing themselves to a professional musician who has practiced for 20 years. Would that comparison be fair? Not at all. Yet English learners do this every day. They compare their chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. They compare their first year of learning to someone else's 10th year. And then they feel discouraged. Remember this: every fluent English speaker was once a beginner. Every confident speaker once struggled to form simple sentences. Every person you admire once made countless mistakes. The difference is that they kept going. There is another truth that many learners do not realize. Learning English is not just about learning information. It is about building a skill. Think about riding a bicycle. You cannot learn to ride a bicycle by reading a book. You cannot become a good swimmer by watching videos. You cannot become a great football player by memorizing rules. You must practice. You must struggle. You must make mistakes. English works exactly the same way. Many learners spend years collecting information. They collect grammar rules. They collect vocabulary lists. They collect learning methods. But they do not spend enough time using English. As a result, they know a lot about English but cannot use English comfortably. This creates frustration. The truth is that struggle is part of the learning process. Struggle does not mean you are failing. Struggle often means you are growing. When your brain feels challenged, it is adapting. When speaking feels uncomfortable, you are developing a new skill. When you make mistakes, you are learning. Many people quit because they misunderstand struggle. They think struggle is evidence that they cannot learn English. In reality, struggle is evidence that learning is happening. Think about going to the gym. When you exercise, your muscles feel tired. Sometimes they even feel sore. You do not see this as failure. You understand that your muscles are becoming stronger. The same thing happens when learning English. Your brain is doing difficult work. It is creating new connections. It is building new habits. It is learning a new way of communicating. That process naturally feels challenging. So the next time English feels difficult, remember this. Difficulty does not mean you are incapable. Difficulty does not mean you should quit. Difficulty does not mean you are too old or not talented enough. Difficulty simply means you are learning. The people who become fluent are not the people who never struggle. They are the people who continue despite the struggle. They accept that progress takes time. They accept that mistakes are normal. They accept that fluency is built slowly. And because they keep moving forward, they eventually achieve what once seemed impossible. So if English feels hard right now, do not be discouraged. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are simply experiencing the same journey that every fluent English speaker has experienced. Keep learning. Keep practicing. Keep showing up. Because fluency is not created by talent. Fluency is created by consistent effort over time. And every day you continue is one step closer to becoming the English speaker you want to be. Lesson 2. Stop looking for the perfect method. One of the biggest mistakes English learners make is spending more time searching for the perfect method than actually learning English. Many learners believe that somewhere out there is a magical technique that'll suddenly make everything easy. They think, maybe I need a different course. Maybe I need a different teacher. Maybe I need a different app. Maybe I need a different book. Maybe I need a different method. As a result, they jump from one method to another. One week they are learning through grammar. The next week they are trying a new speaking method. A few days later they discover another technique on the internet. Then they switch again. Months pass, sometimes even years pass. Yet their English barely improves. Why? Because consistency is more important than the method. Imagine a person who wants to get fit. On Monday, they follow one workout plan. On Wednesday, they switch to another. On Friday, they try something completely different. The next week, they start another program. Would they make much progress? Probably not. The problem is not the workout plan. The problem is the lack of consistency. English learning works exactly the same way. Most methods can work if you stay with them long enough. The real issue is that many learners quit before the method has enough time to produce results. We live in a world that loves quick results. People want everything immediately. Fast food, fast internet, fast delivery. And unfortunately, many people want fast fluency too. But language learning does not work like that. There are no shortcuts to experience. There are no shortcuts to practice. There are no shortcuts to fluency. Every fluent speaker has spent hundreds or thousands of hours listening, reading, speaking, and thinking in English. The process may not be exciting every day. Sometimes it feels repetitive. Sometimes it feels slow. But repetition is exactly what builds fluency. Think about a child learning their first language. Children hear the same words thousands of times, the same phrases, the same sentence patterns, again and again. This repetition helps the language become natural. Yet many adult learners get bored with repetition. They constantly search for something new, something exciting, something different. But often the thing they need most is not a new method. It is more repetition. The truth is that successful learners usually have very simple routines. They listen regularly. They read regularly. They speak regularly. They continue doing these things for months and years. Nothing magical, nothing complicated, just consistent effort. Imagine two learners. The first learner spends 6 months searching for the perfect method. They watch countless videos about learning English. They read articles. They compare techniques. They analyze every possible approach. The second learner chooses one simple routine. They listen to English every day. They read every day. They practice speaking every day. 6 months later, who is likely to be closer to fluency? The second learner. Not because they found a better method, but because they spent more time practicing. Many learners confuse preparation with progress. They spend hours organizing study plans. They create beautiful schedules. They buy books. They collect resources. But preparation is not progress. Only practice creates progress. You do not become fluent by planning to learn English. You become fluent by using English. Another problem with constantly changing methods is that it creates doubt. Every time you switch methods, you send your brain a message. Maybe what I was doing wasn't good enough. This creates uncertainty. And uncertainty often leads to inconsistency. Instead, choose a simple approach and trust it. For example, listen every day, read every day, learn useful vocabulary, think in English, speak whenever possible. Then repeat this process consistently. Will it feel exciting every day? Probably not. Will it work? Absolutely, because fluency is not built through excitement. Fluency is built through consistency. Many people underestimate the power of small daily actions. They want dramatic results. But dramatic results usually come from ordinary actions repeated for a long time. A few pages read every day. A few minutes of listening every day. A few conversations every day. These small efforts may seem insignificant, but over time they become powerful. One day you suddenly realize you understand more. You speak more easily. You remember more vocabulary. You feel more confident. This is how fluency develops, not through one perfect method, but through thousands of small moments of practice. So stop asking, what is the perfect method? Start asking, what method can I stay consistent with? Because the best method is not the most popular one. It is not the newest one. It is not the most complicated one. The best method is the one you will actually use every day. Remember, consistency beats perfection. Action beats planning. Practice beats theory. The learners who become fluent are not usually the ones with the best method. They are the ones who refuse to quit. So choose a simple system. Trust the process. Stay consistent. And let time do its work. Because fluency is not found in a secret method. Fluency is built through daily effort, patience, and persistence. Lesson 3. English is a skill, not a school subject. One of the biggest truths about learning English is this: English is a skill, not a school subject. This simple idea can completely change the way you learn. Many learners spend years studying English in school. They memorize grammar rules. They complete exercises. They take tests. They get scores. But after all those years, many still struggle to speak confidently. Why does this happen? Because they learned English as a subject to pass exams, not as a skill to communicate. Think about learning to drive a car. Could you become a good driver by reading a driving manual for 5 years? Of course not. You could memorize every rule in the book and still be unable to drive. Why? Because driving is a skill. Skills must be practiced. The same thing is true for English. You can know hundreds of grammar rules. You can memorize thousands of vocabulary words. You can watch endless videos about English learning. But if you rarely use English, your progress will remain limited. Imagine a football player. The player does not become great by reading about football. The player becomes great by practicing. Running, passing, shooting, playing matches, making mistakes, improving, again and again. English works exactly the same way. The problem is that many learners spend most of their time studying English and very little time using English. They know what the past tense is. They know what the present perfect is. They know grammar terminology. But when someone asks them a simple question, they become nervous and silent. That happens because knowledge and skill are different things. Knowledge is knowing something. Skill is being able to do something. You may know how swimming works, but until you get into the water, you cannot swim. You may know English grammar, but until you start speaking, listening, reading, and writing regularly, you cannot become fluent. This is why practice is so important. Many learners wait until they feel ready before they start speaking. They think, I'll speak when my grammar is perfect. I'll speak when I know more vocabulary. I'll speak when I feel confident. The problem is that confidence usually comes after practice, not before it. The more you practice, the more confident you become. The more confident you become, the easier speaking feels. Think about a child learning their first language. Children do not spend years studying grammar books. They listen, they imitate, they experiment, they make mistakes, they communicate, and slowly they become fluent. As adults, we sometimes make language learning more complicated than it needs to be. We focus too much on knowing English and not enough on using English. Real improvement happens when English becomes part of your daily life. Use English while walking. Use English while cooking. Use English while exercising. Use English while thinking. Use English while describing your day. The goal is not to create a perfect English environment. The goal is to create regular contact with English. Every time you use English, you strengthen the skill. Every sentence you speak is practice. Every paragraph you read is practice. Every podcast you listen to is practice. Every journal entry you write is practice. These small moments matter more than many learners realize. Another important truth is that skills improve through repetition. When you first ride a bicycle, it feels difficult. You wobble, you lose balance, you make mistakes. But after enough practice, riding becomes automatic. You no longer think about every movement. The same thing happens with English. At first, speaking feels slow. You search for words. You translate in your head. You hesitate. But after enough practice, common words and phrases become automatic. You stop thinking about every grammar rule. You simply communicate. That is what fluency really is. Fluency is not perfect English. Fluency is the ability to communicate smoothly and naturally. Many learners chase perfection, but perfection often slows progress. A person who speaks imperfect English every day will improve much faster than someone who waits silently for perfect English. Action creates skill. Practice creates fluency. Experience creates confidence. This is why your focus should not be on becoming perfect. Your focus should be on becoming better. A little better every day. One more conversation. One more page. One more listening session. One more attempt. These small efforts build real skill. So remember this lesson. English is not a subject to memorize. English is a skill to practice. Treat it like a skill. Use it. Practice it. Live with it. Make mistakes with it. Grow with it. Because the people who become fluent are not necessarily the people who know the most about English. They are the people who use English the most. And every day you choose to use English, you are becoming a stronger, more confident, and more fluent English speaker. Lesson 4. The best approach. Input before output. If there is one mistake that slows down many English learners, it is trying to speak before giving their brain enough English input. Many people focus only on output. They want to speak. They want to have conversations. They want to sound fluent immediately, but they forget something important. Before your mouth can produce English, your brain must first absorb English. This is why one of the best approaches to learning English is input before output. What does that mean? It means spending time listening to English and reading English before worrying too much about speaking perfectly. Think about how children learn their first language. For months and even years, children receive enormous amounts of input. They listen to their parents. They listen to family members. They listen to conversations around them. Every day, their brains collect language. Only later do they begin speaking. The same principle can help English learners. Your brain needs examples. Your brain needs patterns. Your brain needs exposure. The more English you hear and read, the more material your brain has to work with when it is time to speak. Imagine trying to cook a meal without ingredients. No matter how skilled you are, you cannot cook without ingredients. Vocabulary, sentence patterns, and expressions are the ingredients of speaking. Input gives you those ingredients. Without enough input, speaking becomes very difficult. Many learners say, "I know grammar, but I can't speak." Often the reason is simple. They spent years studying rules, but very little time listening and reading. As a result, their brains understand English academically, but do not feel comfortable with real English. This is where listening becomes extremely important. Listening trains your ears. It helps you become familiar with pronunciation. It helps you understand rhythm and natural speech patterns. It teaches you how words connect together in real conversations. At first, listening may feel difficult. You may understand only a few words. That is completely normal. Every fluent speaker experiences this stage. The key is to keep listening. You do not need to understand every word. You simply need to expose your brain to English consistently. Think about listening like exercising. One workout does not transform your body, but repeated workouts create strength. Similarly, repeated listening creates understanding. Every minute of listening strengthens your English brain. Reading is equally important. Reading introduces you to vocabulary, sentence structures, and ideas. It helps you see how English is actually used. Every article, story, conversation, or book becomes a lesson. The beautiful thing about reading is that you can learn naturally. Instead of memorizing vocabulary lists, you encounter words in context. You see how words work together. This makes learning easier and more memorable. Imagine learning the word opportunity. Instead of memorizing a definition, you read, "This job is a great opportunity." Suddenly, the word has meaning. Context helps your brain remember. This is one reason why reading is such a powerful learning tool. Now let's talk about balance. Input before output does not mean avoiding speaking completely. Some learners misunderstand this idea. They spend years listening and reading, but never practice speaking. That is also a mistake. Speaking remains important. The goal is not to replace speaking. The goal is to support speaking with strong input. Think of it this way. Input fills the tank. Output uses what is inside the tank. If the tank is empty, speaking becomes difficult. If the tank is full, speaking becomes easier. This is why learners who listen and read consistently often notice something surprising. One day, words start appearing naturally. Expressions come to mind automatically. Sentences feel easier to create. That happens because the brain has absorbed enough input. The language starts becoming familiar. Another benefit of input is confidence. Many learners feel nervous because English feels unfamiliar. The more you listen and read, the more familiar English becomes. Familiarity reduces fear. The language begins to feel natural instead of foreign. Imagine hearing the same phrase hundreds of times. "How are you doing?" "What do you mean?" "That sounds great." "I'll see you tomorrow." Eventually, these phrases become automatic. You no longer need to think about them. This is the power of repeated input. Many learners are looking for secret techniques, but often the biggest secret is simply increasing the amount of English they receive every day. Listen more. Read more. Expose yourself to more English. Trust the process. Every sentence you hear helps. Every page you read helps. Every conversation you listen to helps. Even when progress feels invisible, your brain is learning. So make input a daily habit. Listen while walking. Listen while exercising. Read during your free time. Read things that interest you. Fill your day with English. Then gradually begin using what you learn through speaking and writing. Remember, input comes before strong output. The brain must receive language before it can produce language. The more English you feed your mind, the more English your mind can give back. And over time, this simple approach can transform your fluency, confidence, and ability to communicate naturally. Lesson 5. The secret most learners ignore. Speak before you feel ready. One of the biggest secrets about learning English is also one of the most uncomfortable truths. You must start speaking before you feel ready. Most learners believe the opposite. They think, "I need more vocabulary first. I need better grammar first. I need better pronunciation first. I need more confidence first. Then I will start speaking." The problem is that this day rarely comes. Because the more you learn, the more you realize there is still more to learn. There will always be new vocabulary. There will always be grammar rules you do not fully understand. There will always be areas where you can improve. If you wait until you feel completely ready, you may wait forever. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. Imagine someone who spends years reading books about bicycles. They watch videos. They learn every rule. They study balance. They understand how bicycles work. But they never actually get on a bicycle. Would they become a good cyclist? Of course not. At some point, they must ride. They must wobble. They must make mistakes. They must feel uncomfortable. And through that experience, they gradually improve. Speaking English works exactly the same way. You cannot become a confident speaker by preparing forever. Confidence comes through speaking, not before speaking. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings in language learning. Many learners think confidence creates action. In reality, action often creates confidence. The more you speak, the more comfortable you become. The more comfortable you become, the more confident you feel. Imagine two learners. The first learner studies English for 3 years but rarely speaks. The second learner studies for the same amount of time but speaks regularly, even when making mistakes. Who will likely become a stronger speaker? The second learner. Not because they know more English, but because they have practiced using English. Speaking is a skill, and skills improve through use. Many learners are afraid of making mistakes. This fear keeps them silent. They worry. What if I say something wrong? What if people laugh? What if my grammar is bad? What if my pronunciation is not perfect? These fears are normal. Every learner experiences them. But remember this: mistakes are not evidence of failure. Mistakes are evidence of participation. A person who never makes mistakes is usually a person who never tries. Every mistake teaches something. Every mistake reveals an area for improvement. Every mistake moves you one step closer to fluency. Think about a child learning their first language. Children make countless mistakes. They mispronounce words. They use incorrect grammar. They say funny things. But nobody expects perfection. And because they are willing to communicate despite mistakes, they improve rapidly. Adult learners often place too much pressure on themselves. They expect perfection too soon. This creates fear, and fear creates silence. The solution is simple. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. Your goal is communication, not perfection. If people understand your message, you are succeeding. Fluency grows from communication, not from perfect grammar, not from perfect pronunciation, not from perfect vocabulary. Communication comes first. Improvement follows. One of the best habits you can develop is speaking English every day, even if only for a few minutes. Talk about your day. Describe your plans. Explain what you see around you. Speak to yourself if necessary. The important thing is using the language. At first, speaking may feel slow. You may pause frequently. You may forget words. You may translate in your head. This is normal. Every fluent speaker experienced these challenges. The difference is that they continued speaking anyway. Over time, something interesting happens. Your brain becomes faster. Common words become easier to access. Sentence patterns become familiar. You stop translating as much. Speaking begins to feel more natural. This transformation only happens through practice. No amount of preparation can replace experience. Another important truth is that speaking reveals what you actually know. Many learners believe they know a word until they try using it. Many learners believe they understand grammar until they try applying it in conversation. Speaking exposes weaknesses, and that is a good thing. Because once you identify weaknesses, you know what to improve. Silence hides weaknesses. Speaking reveals them. And revealed weaknesses can be fixed. That is why speaking is such a powerful teacher. Every conversation becomes feedback. Every attempt becomes a lesson. Every mistake becomes an opportunity. So stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting until you feel completely ready. Start speaking now. Speak with the English you already have. Use simple sentences. Use simple words. Focus on expressing ideas. Trust that your skills will grow with practice. Remember, fluent speakers were not born fluent. They became fluent by speaking before they felt ready. They made mistakes. They felt nervous. They struggled. But they kept going. And because they kept going, they improved. You can do the same. Every sentence you speak is progress. Every conversation is practice. Every day of speaking brings you closer to fluency. So open your mouth, use your English, accept the mistakes, learn from them, and keep speaking. Because fluency is waiting on the other side of action. Lesson 6. The long-term mindset for fluency. If there is one lesson that can completely change your English learning journey, it is this. Fluency is a long-term project. Many learners start learning English with excitement and motivation. They watch videos, learn new words, practice speaking, and feel inspired. But after a few weeks or months, reality appears. Progress feels slower than expected. Mistakes continue happening. Fluency still seems far away. At this point, many learners become frustrated. Some quit completely. Others start searching for a new method. Some begin doubting themselves. But the learners who eventually become fluent understand something important. Fluency is not a sprint. It is a marathon. Imagine two people planting trees. The first person plants a seed and checks it every day. After 1 week, they become disappointed because the tree is still small. After a month, they become impatient. Eventually, they stop taking care of it. The second person understands that trees need time. They continue watering it. They continue caring for it. They remain patient. Years later, they have a strong and healthy tree. English works exactly the same way. Many learners focus too much on daily results. They ask, why am I not fluent yet? Why am I still making mistakes? Why is this taking so long? But language learning is not measured in days. It is measured in months and years of consistent effort. One of the biggest mistakes learners make is comparing themselves to others. They see someone speaking English confidently on YouTube. They see a person speaking fluently online. And they think, why am I not at that level? What they often do not see is the years of practice behind that fluency. They see the result. They do not see the journey. Comparison steals motivation because it focuses your attention on someone else's progress instead of your own. Instead of asking, am I as good as them? Ask, am I better than I was 6 months ago? That is the comparison that matters. Because your real competition is not another learner. Your real competition is the person you were yesterday. Every new word you learn is progress. Every page you read is progress. Every conversation you have is progress. Even if the progress feels small, many learners underestimate the power of small improvements. Imagine improving just 1% every day. 1% seems insignificant. Most people would ignore it. But after months and years, those small improvements create extraordinary results. This is how fluency is built. Not through giant breakthroughs, not through magical methods, but through thousands of small improvements accumulated over time. Another important mindset shift is understanding that mistakes never completely disappear. Even advanced speakers make mistakes. Even native speakers make mistakes. The goal is not perfection. The goal is communication. Many learners believe that fluent speakers never hesitate, never forget words, never make grammar errors. That is not true. Fluent speakers simply continue communicating despite imperfections. They focus on expressing ideas rather than speaking perfectly. This mindset reduces pressure and makes learning more enjoyable. You do not need perfect English to have meaningful conversations. You do not need perfect pronunciation to be understood. You do not need perfect grammar to communicate successfully. Perfection is not the requirement. Communication is the requirement. Another truth about fluency is that motivation comes and goes. Some days you will feel excited. Some days you will not. Some days learning English will feel easy. Some days it will feel difficult. This is normal. Do not build your learning journey around motivation. Build it around habits. Motivation is temporary. Habits are reliable. A person who studies only when they feel motivated will make inconsistent progress. A person who studies because it is part of their routine will continue improving regardless of how they feel. That is why daily habits are so powerful. A little listening every day. A little reading every day. A little speaking every day. A little thinking in English every day. These habits create fluency over time. Think about brushing your teeth. You do not brush your teeth once for 5 hours and expect them to stay clean forever. You do it every day. English works the same way. Consistent practice keeps your skills growing. There will be times when progress feels invisible. You may feel stuck. You may feel like nothing is changing. During those moments, trust the process. Many of the most important changes happen beneath the surface. Your brain is building connections. Your understanding is growing. Your confidence is developing, even when you cannot see immediate results. The learners who become fluent are not always the smartest. They are not always the most talented. They are often the most persistent. They keep going when progress feels slow. They keep practicing when motivation disappears. They keep believing when doubt appears. And eventually, their consistency produces results. So as you continue your English journey, remember these truths. Fluency takes time. Comparison is unnecessary. Small improvements matter. Mistakes are normal. Habits are more important than motivation. Consistency beats intensity. Trust the process. Keep learning. Keep speaking. Keep listening. Keep reading. And most importantly, keep going. Because one day, the English that feels difficult today will feel natural. One day, the conversations that seem impossible today will become easy. One day, you will look back and realize how far you have come. And that day will arrive not because of talent, luck, or a secret method. It will arrive because you refuse to quit. That is the real secret to English fluency. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Remember, learning English is not about being perfect. It is about making progress every single day. Stop looking for shortcuts. Stop comparing yourself to other learners. Stop worrying about mistakes. Instead, focus on listening, reading, speaking, and practicing consistently. Some days will be difficult. Some days will feel slow. But every minute you spend with English is moving you closer to fluency. Trust the process. Stay patient. Keep showing up. And never forget that every fluent English speaker was once a beginner who refused to quit. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful English learning lessons. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep believing in yourself. Your English fluency is not a dream. It is a result of the habits you build every day. See you in the next video.